Welcome in to another Tuesday night edition of Unverified. Tony Donohue, David Land, Kyle Cuthbertson, and Boris's backside is joining us here on the show here this evening. It was a busy day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We spent some time at the 8-hour race from IMS on Saturday as well. I know David wants to discuss a few of the cool things that he did out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, not just today, but last week as well. Gentlemen, welcome as always. Welcome to all the viewers. Like and subscribe while you're here. And coming off a pretty interesting kind of half-test day from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway earlier today.
Yeah, you had two cars testing tires, which was very quick. Pato Award and Alex Palou, they were off the track before one. And then you had...
Hold on. Let me interrupt you. They were bitching about me having the TV on. Boris is going to be distracted everybody.
That's fine. We love Boris. We're big Boris.
You wanted to be involved, guys.
I like it. All right, continue.
We're big Boris people here. We love Boris. We love cats. I think we're all cat guys, although I don't know about Tony. Tony, are you a cat guy or are you a dog person?
I don't mind cats. I like cats and dogs equally.
All right, so he's a dog person. That's a politically correct dog person. The other two cars were Takuma Sato and Alexander Rossi. Their testing program was a bit more interesting, at least from new things being tested. There was a new braking system, both of the cars. You may have seen in the last few Indianapolis 500s where cars will come into the pits and all of a sudden will lose brakes. Part of the reason for that is Takuma Sato explained today, and you've heard from other drivers. Remember, well, I won't name the driver. I don't think the statute of limitations has quite run out on that. But there's a particular driver that had a brake failure coming into the pit, crashed. And part of that is that the teams actually, to reduce drag on the race cars, actually pull the brake calipers apart away from the rotor. Now, what that does is sometimes the brakes don't catch.
Hold on. Speaking of rotors and routers, we got to get you to not be pixelated. We're back to, you got to move your 100,000 plaque, and we got to get you back on the rail so we can make sure.
Right there.
You have to ask Clippy how to dial up your internet.
Wait, is now the time?
Now is the time.
Oh, yeah.
Let's ask Clippy how to get David's internet going. We are going to introduce the Ask Clippy segment of the show. We're going to ask throughout the offseason some random questions. And right now we're going to ask David to get his internet fixed a little bit here. So, David, when you feel like you're ready or whatever you got to do, maybe you got to take that router back to Kmart. We're not sure. Is he frozen? Is he completely frozen?
He's gone?
He's frozen.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. We have lost David. Right
No.
All right. So we'll get David ready to go here. But, yeah, interesting day from IMS. David's going to do the Ask Clippy segment where he's going to break down what these cars and these drivers were working on. A lot of interesting stuff. We got to talk to Doug Bowles earlier today. We're going to get into that. And as we wait for David to dial it back up, Kyle, I know you were out there shooting as well today. I thought the interesting conversation with Doug Bowles was about the bump. Obviously, there was a repave of the bump in turn 2. Hey, he's back, race fans.
I make it.
The bump in turn 2, very interesting, just based on it was discovered kind of overnight. They were driving, and the lights kind of showed it. The track continued to raise up, which I found very interesting. And then Kyle Larson, actually, who obviously ran both races the last 2 years, noticed the bump even more, which I thought was interesting. So that's been paved. I think Alex Palou summed it up. It's kind of an annoyance to the drivers a little bit, and you could really feel it in the turbulence when you're fourth in line. And guess who was fourth in line towards the end of that race and obviously made the move to pass Marcus Ericsson to win, Alex Palou, when the two Rahal cars were up front. We also asked Doug some other things as far as what it looks like for the future with Fox. Obviously, IndyCar being on Fox next year. We got the news that F1 is no longer going to be on ABC/ESPN. We also asked him about an independent body for next year as far as the competition committee goes and as far as what tech can look like. We should have some news coming up on that here over the next several weeks. So, David, we'll let you pick up where you left off, where we lost you in the Ask Clippy segment.
Okay, where was I? Where did you lose me? What was I saying when you lost
Talk about what we learned today. How about that?
Okay, what we learned today. So we were talking about...
Besides the fact that you're slow on an oval, on a go-kart.
Objectively not true. It was the right rear. So I think I was talking about the brake calipers. So they changed the brakes to make it so that there's no drag and you can also actually use the brake. And then they were testing Sato and Rossi were testing a potential change to the regulations, which would be spec dampers. And if you don't know what dampers are, they're essentially the one component on the racing machine that is open for development. It's essentially the shocks on the race car, and you can do what you want with them. Now, it's a huge expense for the teams, but it's something where the teams have invested a lot of money. There are, I would say, mixed feelings at best on the idea of them going to a spec part for that. But as Takuma kind of explained to us, it's actually the idea of the spec part is a newer solution than what is currently being developed. So potentially it could provide similar performance to what the teams are currently running, at the expense of all of the expense that the teams have spent developing the 12-year-old dampers. So it's an interesting discussion, and one that I suppose will rage for the next couple of years. I wouldn't expect them to go to spec parts between 2026 and 2027. You have to imagine that's a 2028 thing, which is exactly why I asked Doug Bowles at the little media scrum that we had, what is the update on the 2028 car? I think I've reported on here before, and if I haven't, I apologize. Maybe it was DL 500 Club, but the team owners have seen a render of the new car, not the one that maybe some of you have seen floating around. But yeah, they're getting pretty close to a finalized version of what that and the rule set will look like. Doug specifically let us know that to expect in Q1 of 2026, not only that we will see publicly what the car looks like, but most likely there will be a physical model unveiled, something that the fans can get up close to and touch. That would line up with a few other things, without going into super detail. December is going to be a super important month from a contract signing perspective, I guess, let's say. So IndyCar is going to have to really, IndyCar is going to have a very good idea of what they are working with for the next regulations here in the next month, and which suppliers they will be working with, or maybe not working with. So we will see in the next couple of months exactly what direction that goes. And then, as Doug Bowles said publicly and on the record, Q1 2026 is when we're going to start seeing public things with the 2028 car. So it's good, I suppose, that there is a timeline set and we kind of know where things are headed now. So that's a huge improvement over where it was 12 months ago.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. I thought it was very interesting to talk of the brakes, right? And I think Alexander Rossi pointed out that, you want the brakes to feel the exact same during your fourth or fifth pit stop during the Indianapolis 500 as it did, that first pit stop. And we've seen a lot of timing issues. I think Sato last year comes to mind, whether that was the brakes or not. Obviously, Robert Schwartzman kind of slid through his pit box and went bowling with a few of his Prema crew guys. So I thought that was very interesting. Talk about, David, what it looks like, what it feels like, what the difference is, and why, and go a little bit into more detail on these dampers. I know it's very inside baseball, but to the fans, including myself, which obviously I don't know, the difference between some of these dampers that we're seeing and what it actually does to the performance of a race car.
I mean, to put it extremely simply, because to be quite honest, I'm not the biggest believe it or not, I'm not the biggest gearhead in the world. Like, the thing with dampers is it's a way to adjust the stiffness of the racing machine, which can help you, whether it's a very smooth track, you would want to, if you wanted to tighten up the car, change how it drives, the vehicle dynamics in some ways, you can adjust those with the dampers. The other thing would be, like on a street course, we see Andretti Global has a very, very good shock and damper package for the street courses. And what that does is allows them to handle the bumps at a place like Toronto or St. Pete or Long Beach better than many other teams. You look at a road course and you would say that Chip Ganassi Racing has the field beat dollars to donuts in that department, and the dampers are a huge part of that. Ironically, the thing that I've always heard is, because they're testing the dampers at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I've actually heard that the place that the dampers mean the least is actually at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Oval, believe it or not. So it's kind of funny that the place where the most development dollars are spent probably means the least at the most important race.
Spring Kyle in here too, who was at the track today. We really got going a little bit in the morning, and then we knew that Pato and Palou were packing up for the day. We obviously talked to all four of the drivers as well as Doug Bowles. Some very interesting conversations. You can find those on my social media channels as well as David's recap video today on his YouTube channel. But Kyle, I know talking to some of these drivers, there were some interesting things back and forth. What did you take away from talking to the drivers today, kind of midway through the tests? Obviously, Palou and Pato did not go back out. I think we saw Rossi go back out for a few laps. Sato did as well in the afternoon before it rained. Sato and Rossi both back at it tomorrow at 9 a.m., testing some different elements of the race car as well.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It was very cool how open everyone kind of was about the components that were being tested. Was something that I think going into the test that none of us had thought were going to happen. I think, we'll get more into this as the show goes on, but I thought about, the spec dampers and who wants this. We know Mike Shank has been someone who's been very vocal about this, wanting this. And, there's a lot of, I think, behind the scenes in this that maybe we don't know the full picture yet. When it comes to the track, I think it's very interesting how, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the world's greatest race course, how the asphalt has kind of moved and changed, and how different it is to any other circuit because of you have the like four surfaces underneath of it, where it's not something where, usually when there's a repave, you're bringing up, you're basically tearing up track and replacing it, where the IMS was paved over brick and then paved over again. I mean, it's very different to other circuits. So the way that the bricks are coming up and the way that the track's kind of moving on top of the soil, hearing drivers talking about how the track's kind of changing. Sato talking about how the turn 2 is a bit different after the NASCAR guys race on it because they run a lot closer to the wall and exit. It was very interesting. Like, I think that perspective of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is something that I think getting a driver's view on is very cool.
You mentioned the surface. I actually learned something at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum this weekend because they actually have a display of all of the different surface types. And something that's under the bricks is actually the very first surface that was at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is crushed stone and tar. And what's amazing, I mean, it's unbelievable. If you can get to the museum and see this, it's kind of an amazing piece of history, is that the tar from 1909 is still viscous. So what's happening with the tar and that rock underneath the bricks is that it's actually moving. And so that's kind of part of the problem too, is that you've built the bricks on top of this tar and crushed stone, which, because the tar hasn't gotten hard over 100 years, it's moving, constantly moving underneath the track. And you can even see the piece of the slab that they have in the museum of that crushed stone and tar. The tar is actually moving, leaking, and coming apart. It's an unbelievable piece of. I don't know how they're going to end up preserving that, but right now it's incredible to see, because this is we talk about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway a lot being a living, breathing organism, right? That feels like they took some flesh out of this thing and put it on display. I mean, it is amazing to see that. So when you talk about that surface moving underneath, honestly, the Indianapolis Speedway surface is built like a cake. It's like the Cake Boss or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you've got all these different layers, and some of those layers underneath were not done with very good technology, or at least modern technology. So it's so funny. They've never really torn the surface up. They've just always built on top of it. So it's very fascinating.
And that also explains, I mean, it's maybe something that we need to do a history segment on next year, because I think that the surface of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is a very interesting one, because obviously the last time it was repaved was 2004. And since then it's been diamond graded, I believe.
Yes.
And it's been sealed once or twice, and that's pretty much it. So a surface that old, I mean, the track, the surface just turned 21. It can drink now. It's very impressive how smooth and how well it's held up. Because I think going through a process where I think the elephant in the room for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is kind of how tricky it would be to fully repave it, and kind of the way and the expenses that you go about doing that. So yeah, I mean, just hearing about what they're doing with turn 2, and I'm sure there's going to be more throughout the next couple of years. You look 5 to 10 years in the future. I'm sure this isn't the only time they'll be doing something like this. We hear the drivers talking about a big bump entering 2, which I know Alexander Rossi was very vocal in saying that he didn't want that to go away because it gives it a bit of character. So this isn't going to be the last time I think that something like this happens to the Speedway. And I think I remember there was a big bump in the middle of turn 3 when we went around the track in go-karts. I think that's always been a thing. Yes. But I think that's something that we could probably dive into a bit more next May. Is like, we know turn 3 is a little bit more banked than the other corners, and then we've heard today about how turn 2 has a bump on entry and kind of is very tricky in a different way. I think that's something a lot of people don't really realize about the 4 corners of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
So the bump in turn 3 is interesting because you should watch the end of the 1982 500, and we're literally brainstorming a history segment right now. But if you watch the end of the 82 500, one of the reasons that because essentially Gordon Johncock wins the race when he chops Rick Mears going into turn 1. You won't see that because they show the wives, but he essentially he chops Rick Mears going into turn 1. And the only reason Mears gets a run on him coming to the line is, and it's kind of hard to see because the glass on the lens is a little bit foggy. But watch it slow-mo, like kind of slow it down because you can do that on YouTube. Johncock goes into 3 and drives underneath the white line because his car was pushing, and he hits that bump, and the car actually bottoms out, and he almost loses it. It's hard to see, but if you watch it in slow motion, you can see it. You can see the car like kind of spark, and he can kind of wiggles. And so that's where Mears gets the run. So that bump in turn 3 is why the 82 finish happened. So, yeah, that's a historic bump.
So, yeah, the track surface is on display at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum. If you're into the NASCAR heritage of the IMS Museum, check out the display of Brickyard cars that is right around the corner from rotating out to a new exhibit. I bought the Bobby Labonte shirt in there earlier today, as well as some cards. So let's continue the topics with today, and let's just go through driver by driver. Takuma Sato, fully healed. Obviously, he raced with some cracked ribs back in May. I would say all but confirmed for sure that he's going to be back next year. I think we're just waiting for the announcement. We've heard, obviously, he's going to run in a Honda probably as long as he would like to. And he doesn't seem to age, so I don't see that. I don't see a day anytime soon where Takuma Sato is not running the Indianapolis 500. Obviously competitive this year, starting on the front row and leading the most laps. So that was interesting to see, obviously, today with a fully wrapped car. More than likely, the obvious, we're just waiting on the announcement of Takuma Sato coming back to the Indianapolis 500 next year. Alex Palou, we talked to, discussed a lot of things, as well as maybe taking the Borg Warner Trophy over to Spain. Alexander Rossi, really year one officially in the books here with Rossi at ECR and just kind of continuing to grow. And he mentioned consistently competing for top 10s towards the end of the season. Obviously, they had huge progress on ovals. Christian Rasmussen won at Milwaukee. Pato Award, big week for him. Obviously, testing at IMS today. Will be in a Formula One car coming up this weekend. Also, he discussed, kind of being back in Indy and how much he loves the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So, David, we'll talk with you and go to Kyle. Takeaways from anything else we heard from the drivers today during our media availability.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Tony. I'm kind of surprised they just haven't announced Takuma Sato as returning in the 75. I mean, to be honest, to be fair to Sato, he was pretty much like, look, we've just not signed the contract, essentially, yeah. Right? And I asked him a kind of follow-up question to yours, which was, hey, okay, you're ageless, right? How many more times would you like to do it? And he didn't even commit to, oh, this is my last year. He's like, I would like to keep coming back many, many years to come. So, and quite frankly, he's a 2-time winner. He's earned the right to do that. And, oh, by the way, he led the most laps and started second. And, maybe if he had the brakes that he's testing now, maybe he would have won the Indy 500 this year pretty handily, right? So I wonder if he was the first one to raise his hands when they said, hey, we're going to test some new brakes. And Takuma was probably like, oh, yeah, that's the only problem I had last year. So, it's cool for Takuma. Obviously, Alex Palou, we had to kind of tiptoe around a few things, which is fair. Obviously he's not going to be able to answer anything about court until whatever happens, whether it's a settlement or whether it's a judgment ruling of some way, shape, or form description, one way or the other on that, which is totally fair. And I thought that Pato O'Ward, he's always great to talk to. I understand why you asked him, Tony, and I don't blame you for asking him, but boy, is he sick of talking about Mexico. He is sick of talking about that, right? Because I think that Pato, obviously he's probably the most disappointed person that Mexico City did not happen for 2026. And, he's going to go there and get all of these accolades just to shake down a Formula One car in FP1, right? And it's kind of sad because otherwise I think, and I guess I wonder this, although he said it was out of his hands, so maybe he won't really do anything while he's down there. But I kind of wonder if there's anything Pato could do or any kind of networking Pato could do while he's down there to kind of help move that race along. Obviously, it's not all on his shoulders. I think a lot has already been thrust upon him on his shoulders about that. Alexander Ross, yeah, go ahead.
I didn't get the sense that Pato was in the best of moods today. I don't know what it was. I didn't want to push it too much, but normally we see, maybe he was just cold. He had sweatpants on, but we usually see a very perky, a very ecstatic Pato O'Ward. Didn't get that sense today. So hopefully everything in Pato O'Ward's world is good. And then, we talked to Rossi. Go ahead on that.
Yeah, no. I think Pato, quite honestly, probably if I had to guess, and I might be throwing him under the bus here, is it was an early morning. Maybe he was just tired. like we'll give him that excuse. Rossi, I was encouraged to hear, like Kyle said, Rossi kind of mentioned the bump in turn 2. He was worried about that going away. It hasn't. So any of Rossi's kind of trepidations that we heard last week at the road course test are gone. And it was kind of interesting to hear from all of the drivers. I think I asked Sato, Palou, and Rossi about this. Is okay. So you took some of the bumps away on the exit, and Palou was super descriptive about this. As he said, the bumps weren't too bad. You didn't even notice the bumps in qualifying, but you really noticed it in traffic, and especially on the exit. And they weren't really like nasty bumps, but they just took enough confidence away where you couldn't run as close as you might like on the exit of 2. And so I asked him, obviously we don't know until they run in real traffic, right? And that's what, Alex said. But there is a thought process to if turn 2, at least you can get off of the corner a little bit better if you're the second or third car in line. We haven't seen as much passing going into turn 3 as we have into turn 1 in recent years. And I wonder if this correction to the surface on the exit will allow a little bit more passing because the runs will be a little bit easier going into turn 3 than they have been in the past few years. I'm kind of curious to see how that plays out. And it'll be a talking point and a question when we get back to May of asking these drivers what it's like. Can you pass? Even in the April test, right? I think we'll start seeing some traffic running towards the end of the day on both days. I hope they keep that format, by the way, where they turned the boost up. That was a lot of fun. And I think a pretty solid day at the Speedway, all things considered, that we didn't really run all that much.
Yeah, I would agree. It's always good to be out there. The rain kind of came towards the afternoon part, kind of washed everything away. Seemed like on the tire testing side of things, they got everything in that they needed as far as Palou being out there running, as well as Rossi, Pato, and Takuma Sato. Today, I know there's been some questions. We didn't really get an answer to it. Why, this test has been almost a full field test with at least one car. We didn't really get that answer today. Maybe that's something that we find tomorrow. David, maybe you found a little bit more into that. And and when we look back at kind of what Palou was talking about, and it seems like there was a little bit of a different driver perspective on the bumps in turn 2 as well. So that brings us to a lot of other different interesting topics that we learned. There are still plenty of rides left open. I wouldn't say plenty of rides in IndyCar, but there are a couple that we kind of know about but haven't been signed. Obviously, Sato being one of the Indianapolis 500 next year. We did hear today, there's a lot of news and a lot of things to get into. I think I'd mentioned it on this show that I had been told that Michael Andretti had interest in some form of getting back into the sport of IndyCar. He tweeted today while we were actually at the test at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that he does not have any. I don't believe. Do we have the tweet? I know that he mentioned basically he did not have any interest in getting back into ownership into IndyCar.
Hang on a second, race fans. I've got it. Where was Michael? There we go. So, Michael, there was a rumor that came out, and quite frankly, I had heard it. So, like, let's not totally discount it. But it was something that was said that he was going to buy into Prema, and that had been going around. And I had heard separately that there was a backer for Prema, and I still think that's probably true. It just apparently is not Michael Andretti. So, Michael said on Twitter today, just to set the record straight, I have no intention whatsoever to become an owner of an IndyCar team. And there you go. That's pretty straightforward. And Michael doesn't tweet all that much anymore unless it's about the grandkids. So yeah. I suspect he's telling the truth here.
It was a very blunt, very kind of backhanded answer too. Yeah. Might I add. It was a very, hey, I do not want to own an IndyCar team. It wasn't like it was literally point blank.
He didn't say
I don't
we're
want to
constantly
do that.
evaluating.
Yeah, and there was a lot of different scenarios, and I think when Lockheed Hughes was testing on the road course last week, and it was a TWG livery, and there was some smoke that I think we had heard, and maybe this would make sense, and maybe that would make sense. I had heard that he had interest in coming back into the sport now, and I mentioned this on Twitter. Not sure exactly if that was ownership, if that was some other role, if it was something else. But, Michael, who is selling his house here in Indianapolis and bought one down in Florida, set the record straight as far as ownership. And we kind of heard, and I had heard this over the weekend, and I think last Thursday at the Speedway when I was walking around and ran into a few drivers, that there is going to be some shakeups at Prema. Bare minimum, we're going to see some people towards the top in different roles, bringing in new people in as well. So I do think we will see some personnel changes as Boris falls asleep on us. Both of you guys can answer this as well. We also got the news today of the official announcement on where Colton Herta will be driving when it comes to F2 next year. Let's talk about that team and really his chances to compete for wins, podiums, and top fives coming up in 2026.
So High Tech, I don't know too much about that team, but I think did they win a championship recently? I feel like they had a really good driver at one point. And I'm kind of off base here. I will say this: I was a bit annoyed. I accidentally set my alarm for 6 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. this morning, so I woke up at 6 and I looked at my phone and I said, well, shit, it's 6. So what do? I check Twitter because I'm sane like that. And the first thing I see is an announcement about Colton Herta going to High Tech. So I think that, first of all, I think it sucks that all of these announcements are going to come out at 6 a.m. from now on. I hate it. I like the Eastern time zone or Central. Central's even better. But I think that Colton, at the end of the day, Colton is there to earn the super license points that he needs to go to Formula One. It's not about winning. It's about getting a top 8 in the championship and doing the required FP1 sessions to get a super license to drive one of the Cadillac Formula One cars. That is what he's there for. I think there are extreme expectations placed on him because of who he is, his name, his resume, his pedigree, his wins in IndyCar. I am concerned, of course, like everybody is, that he is going to look a certain way against the drivers in the European feeder system. I think we are all kind of like holding our breath here in the U.S., hoping that Colton looks super, super strong, is a regular race winning contender, and contends for the F2 championship. But we don't know that for sure. So, yeah. So,
High Tech Grand Prix is a team that has hosted drivers such as, hi, Boris. What's up, buddy? Nikita Mazepin, Luca Giotto, Liam Lawson, Yuri Vips, Marcus Armstrong, Jack Crawford, Isaac Hadjar, And if any of you guys know the name currently, Paul Aaron, one of the development drivers, Luke Browning as well, this season is racing for them in his third. So, yeah, I would say pretty good team. That's a lot of names, a lot of IndyCar drivers that I think is a – and it looks like they've won races. Pretty much every driver has won a race.
Stupid Flanders in the comment section, who has Clippy as his photo, says Luke Browning has the most podiums of anyone in F2 this year, and he drives for High Tech. They're a team that can win with Colton. Maybe win the title with Colton again. I mean, obviously, yeah, you want to get to that 8. There's Clippy. You want to get to that top 8 to make sure that you, and as David mentioned, you have the points, because obviously the ultimate goal is Formula One. Is this a goal? Is F1 a goal for Colton in 2027, or knowing that those F1 drivers currently signed right now, David, are 2-year deals? Are we looking at 2028 for Colton to be an F1 ride?
Real quick, the thing about the points is he can get there with the FP1 sessions next year, anyways.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, there you go. So,
yeah. So the races are just to learn the track. He's just running to learn the tracks mostly
and get him adapted to that lifestyle.
Yes.
So yeah, I think, yeah, and nothing. It won't hurt to run F2. It won't hurt. Yeah. Well, the thing about High Tech was, I think, so the reason I think I know them now, when you said Vips, that was the team he went to after he got fired from the Red Bull contract, correct? I believe that's true. I think that's why I know High Tech. I think. But yes, as has been stated, regular podium contender. And again, we hope that Colton can go out there and represent the Stars and Stripes really strong. I would say this, Tony, too, is that there's nothing stopping, and we don't know what the contracts look like, obviously, and we know how weird contracts are with racing in general. But just because you sign someone to a 2-year deal doesn't mean they have to drive your car for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And with Colton, I think the goal is to get him to Formula One as quickly as possible. You're paying him a Formula One style contract, and now he's going to be racing in F2 rather than IndyCar. So you went from a top level series to a feeder series, and you're paying him a Formula One contract to do that. You're not grooming Colton Herta to drive an F1 to sit in F2 for 2 years. If he's got the super license points, he's going to be in one of the Cadillac F1s next year. It's going to come down to who is the better teammate for Colton. Is it going to be Valtteri or is it going to be Sergio? And whichever driver loses out will likely be the reserve driver for the Cadillac Formula One team moving forward. That would be my guess. I don't know for a fact. That would be my guess.
There's some people that are going to ask the possibility of Colton coming to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway next May and running the Indy 500. I personally don't see that happening. I mean, anything's possible. There has been rumors. Let's get back to a little bit of the Indianapolis 500 talk. Obviously, the big rumors are how are we going to get to 33? And obviously, Prema having 2 cars on the grid next year is something that is of the utmost importance. Jacob Abel, who is still searching for a ride as well, is possibly up there. It looks like Marco's, what I've been told, nothing official yet, but seems like there is a possibility of him being back in the 98. Where do we look at as we kind of turn our attention? Because, I thought, you could run a 1 car per team at the test today and tomorrow, knowing that everybody has at least 1 driver confirmed. And then Connor Daly. Is Connor Daly in line for a Ryan Reinbold spot? There's been Ryan Hunter-Ray rumors at McLaren. Have we heard anything? And what is the latest on what the entry list will look like for the Indianapolis 500, albeit today, towards the end of October?
Probably pretty similar to last year would be my guess. I think the real question about whether or not we have bumping is whether Prema is on the grid, right? We know Honda could have done an extra car last year. It came down to things not lining up, right? There were a couple of different deals that fell through. So really, theoretically, you could have, what would that have made 30? Yeah, we sent 1 home, so that would have been 35. So, I think you could get to 35 realistically if Prema is still around and another Honda team expands. Would you see Chevy go higher than they already are? It would be quite an ask. I think if there's some things getting done now, maybe. I think you always hear the talk, and I don't know how much of it is talk and how much of it is speculation versus how much of it is actual things happening behind the scenes. But, I wonder if Able Motorsports goes ahead and puts something together for Jacob. And if they do that, what engine do they have in the back of it? Presumably it would be Chevy, because that's a partner that they've worked with in the past. And quite frankly, if you want to make sure that you are safe in qualifying for the Indianapolis 500, you want a bow tie on your car. We've long established that. So I wonder if that materializes in some way, shape, or form, if you could get to 36. But that's very pie in the sky. I don't think you go past 36. That would be very, very unlikely. But I think 35 is a reasonable with Prema, and 34 is probably going to happen with Prema. If Prema's not there, it'll be 33.
Yeah, it looks like Kyle Collette in line for the 4 car. We learned some news on the Indy Next Series today. Obviously, there's going to be a connection in AJ Foyt Racing with HMD is going to field entries for Indy next year. Colin Kaminsky has been officially announced going to Able Motorsports, as well as Josh Pearson making the jump from HMD over to Andretti. This is an interesting question that came up through the chat from Taurus. Question for you guys: if IndyCar is a slam dunk start to the season with, let's say, 1.5 million plus viewers for the first 3 races, will that mean more entries get confirmed for the Indianapolis 500? I think, and David, you can take this where you want. I think that if you are going to run the Indianapolis 500, you can get down to the wire, let's say April 1st, but I think most car owners, I think the 2 engine manufacturers, I think teams, they really want to have it solidified with budget, knowing what they're going to do. I would almost say by the turn of the calendar year, but certainly, February 1st is probably about as far deep as you want to push it as far as running an Indianapolis 500 entry. If you're waiting on the TV ratings to come out for maybe a sponsor, let's say, that's, I think the Indianapolis 500 sells itself with the TV rating it had last year. We are obviously on the same track, if not even better. Doug Bowles talked about it today as far as ticket sales go. I'm a firm believer you're probably going to see the blackout lifted, and I think they should just lift the blackout completely moving forward, to be honest with you, especially with Fox having ownership stake in IndyCar, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and obviously the Indianapolis 500. So I don't see the TV ratings affecting it. If you're waiting on a sponsor to say, hey, if you guys average 1.5 million for the first 3 races, but the Indy 500 and running an entry with the sponsors, it's kind of its own one-off entity. And I think the numbers from last year alone speak to themselves. And I think they'll reach those numbers, if not exceed them, in 2026 for the Indianapolis 500.
It's simply too late. You can't. I mean, the first 3 races. You're talking about the middle of March, and if you're just putting together a program, because I mean, at the end of the day, you can't just go get a Cosworth off of the shelf and run it yourself. You need to go to one of the engine suppliers. They have a set number of engines that they have available or are willing to make available, and you have to realize with the engine suppliers too, they have to hire an engineer, right? The engineer is not coming from your team. They're coming from HRC and they're coming from Ilmore. Mm-hmm. That's not a team decision. So if you're going to go get even if you put together an amazing $10 million program, I mean, maybe you could get it done in a month and a half. If there was a shortage, we've seen that in the past. If we're at like 32 entries, sure. I'm sure Chevy or Honda would make an entry or an engine available and an engineer available to make the 33 starters. But if you're at that 34, 35 mark and you're in March, you're not selling a sponsorship. And you're also, like you said, I mean, Tony, that was such a great point. You're not selling the sponsorship for the Indy 500 based on the numbers for St. Pete, Phoenix, and Arlington. You're selling that on the 7.5 million people that watched last year. So I suppose, there's nothing bad that would come out of 1.5 million people tuning into the first 3 races. Nothing bad will come out of that. But everything good that will come out of that is certainly we're not going to see the fruits of that in May. It's just simply too short of a runway there.
And I think having high ratings to start the season obviously does a lot for you. I think bare minimum, the benchmark for IndyCar in 2026 should be 1 million viewers. Look, you're going to start off with 3 very different races, 2 new races. Maybe you get some NASCAR fans definitely watching Phoenix because it's a doubleheader weekend. I think as far as the first 3 ratings go, maybe that says, hey, look what we're doing. We're 7th in points. We really got a chance to compete in the month of May. and we're looking for, because there are a lot of quote unquote unsponsored cars. And just because there's a name down the side, doesn't mean it's a fully funded entry because of that sponsor that's on there. That can kind of be fool's gold at times. And we saw that a lot last year in many different liveries and many different sponsors that came into the sport. I think where you're at on that is if you're waiting for the ratings of the first three, it's like, hey, we're 7th in points heading. Let's say, I don't know, let's say Kyle Collette. Okay. He's trying to put budget together. He's trying to get into that Foyt car. There's some Brazilian possible TV money behind him. And let's say they're talking to a sponsor. Let's say AJ Foyt, the name, having whatever the sponsor is, sponsor X says, well, hey, we'll get you some funding. We'll help out based on what you do in the first 3 races. It would probably be, a good TV rating, but I think it's more so, hey, we're 8th in points. We're running up towards the front. We need to get this budget tied up together and we can continue to get those numbers going as far as that. So sponsorship's a very interesting angle. We got plenty of offseason to kind of talk about how sponsors work in the sport, how drivers are paid, how, a lot of drivers bring money to a seat and they then can move themselves forward to bring in another driver. I mean, I don't think it's any secret. Stingray Robb brings a lot of money to the Juncos Hollinger seat. And, hey, we want to go get Rinus VeeKay. And that was announced last week. I believe it was on Tuesday. So it was before we had the show. So we did talk about that last week. I think a question that we talked about last week that we can pick back up on about a week later now, David, if you would like, is the future of Mick Schumacher. And is it going to be IndyCar? I think, David, I'll ask you this, and I'll ask you what your gut feeling is on what we will see in what capacity for Mick Schumacher in 2026.
Gut tells me he's going to be an IndyCar driver next year. Another interesting thing that kind of went under the radar this morning that kind of tipped my head off a little bit was that, and again, it's one driver announcement. It could mean nothing. But Alpine announced that Antonio Felix da Costa is going to be driving for them next year in the World Endurance Championship. One single driver signing with Alpine. Now, that could mean nothing. It could mean something. But the fact that they announce a single driver coming to the team next year says to me that they would probably have a single driver exiting the team. Who could that be? Probably Mick Schumacher. That would be my guess. So an interesting thing that I think kind of went under the radar a little bit this morning with all of the other announcements is that Alpine signed a new driver for their WEC program.
Yeah, so that was interesting as well. And kind of seeing, obviously, Takuma Sato back at Indianapolis 500. That'll probably more than likely be a 4th car for those that maybe missed the early part of the conversation on tonight's show here on Unverified. So testing will continue tomorrow from the Speedway. There's only going to be 2 cars. Again, that'll be Alexander Rossi and Takuma Sato. Pato and Palou kind of exited stage left earlier today. Other racing that has happened, some other news as well. Chase Briscoe won down at Talladega. We had an F1 race here in the States over the weekend. There was an 8-hour race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will Power was a part of that. Connor Daly was a part of that as well. David, I know you're out there with your friends at McLaren. Always nice to be out of the IMS and kind of a different feel, but certainly enjoyed our time out there. What did you learn with your 8-hour experience over the weekend? Besides that, rain sucks at IMS.
Well, rain sucks at IMS.
We learned that today.
Yes.
Well, yeah, we've learned that a lot recently, unfortunately. It's been rain-stricken. No, the 8 hours, really cool kind of chill event at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. For me, outside of I got a really cool opportunity with the McLaren Automotive Group, which was kind of cool. They let me go around the racetrack as a passenger in a 750S McLaren. Incredible road car, really incredible. And it was really fun. Got to eat some of their food. Fantastic. And that also meant that for the rest of the weekend, I could just kind of walk around the grounds as I pleased. I always kind of treat the 8 hour, and you can call me bad for this or not, but like I always I'm the dirty 3-letter F word in racing on the 8 hour weekend, which is a fan, right? So I just get to walk around IMS and just have fun for the most part. And so that's what I would suggest for anyone local. I mean, if you've never checked out the 8 hour, check it out, because it's such a chill event. the grid walk, if you went on the IMSA grid walk, you will know that, wow, that was crowded. Well, the great thing about the 8-hour grid walk is that I could walk pretty much wherever I wanted. There were still lots of people, but it wasn't like the fire marshals about to shut us down crowded that the IMSA one was. And, you could see the drivers that you wanted to see the cars that you wanted to see, shake hands with whoever you wanted to. It was a pretty neat, fun, chill experience. And it always is at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 8-hour. So it was a pretty good race too. I mean, shoot, I think the one thing that races really, really well, ironically enough, on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course is GT3 cars. I mean, there were points at times throughout most of the race, at least when we were green, that the top three overall were dicing and passing each other, and it was just a really exciting race. And you mentioned Connor Daly. I mean, Connor had a great run driving for Random Vandals Racing. Something you got to kind of understand about GT racing is that there are like heavy-hitting factory drivers that get all of the top rides, especially in the Pro or Pro-Am categories. And so if you can keep up and you're not a regular GT driver, you're doing pretty well. And Connor held down 4th place overall pretty handily. And quite frankly, if the race had gone green to the end without the rain interruption, I think his car for Random Vandals Racing would have been really strong towards the end of the race, because once the kind of BMW factory drivers got back in it, I think they would have been right in contention. One yellow flag and they would have been right there. But that wasn't thems weren't the brakes. And the person who got the brakes, well, one of the 3 drivers that won overall was Valentino Rossi, becoming the first driver in Indianapolis Motor Speedway history to win a race on 2 wheels and on 4.
Speaking of, and you can put this in the chat, unless your name's Steven Killsdonk, please don't type. We did do a cool little event last week with the IMS Museum. They had a trivia night. Who's won the most races at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway? So put that in the chat, and maybe we'll give out a cool prize to some of the winners. Maybe we'll pick a random winner, and I'll sell them a card or some sort. So after today's test was rained out, it was great to catch up with some people. Austin Lawton, our good friend, was out there. You could check that out. But then we went racing. We went racing, boys. David, with his own helmet, dusted us on the road course. And then at SIK, if they want to sponsor us, hit us up. Kyle on the slick track, absolutely sending it. Slide job. I mean, I wish Dale Earnhardt Jr. was there, because he would have not stopped yelling slide job, except for when David was turned around going the wrong way every other lap.
I drove backwards more on the slick track more than I drove forwards.
I thought I was going to slam into you.
I won't lie, my car had too much grip. Like, it felt
mine didn't have enough.
Because obviously I have a karting background, so like on the slick track, and even in a rental in general, the left rear should not have any lift, because it's such a heavy, put together, stiff kart, right? And on the slick track of all tracks, I literally was pitching the left rear in the corners, which shouldn't be happening. So I don't know what was going on with my kart. It was very hooked up, but it was very fun, because it was like David was Milkaduno out there, and we could just loop around them or go around the high side, low side, middle.
Listen, it was the right rear. I couldn't lean on the right rear. It was completely gone. I couldn't lean on it. There was no sidewall left. I couldn't lean on it.
I smacked the hell out of the wall a few times just trying to save it. Never spun around. We went with our Austin Lawton came with us, as mentioned, as well as our friend Jonathan Grace. We had a great time. It was still a lot of fun. I felt like every lap Austin was spun out and you were coming dead on.
We have a winner.
It was interesting. We do have a winner, Monte Goodwin, with the first correct answer of Johnny Atkins. So Stephen Killsdonk, who is a historian of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, above and beyond belief. Very interesting. Adam Land says David puts the milk in Milkaduno.
Oh, come on. Yeah, well.
Very, very interesting.
All right.
How many wins does Johnny Aitken have? How do I not know that?
It's like 15. Yeah. He won most of them before the first Indy 500.
It was all before 1911. So, maybe we'll do a trivia question here every night.
I almost don't like that. I kind of wish it was Schumacher and Gordon, honestly.
Well, I should have announced that we did talk a little dude bro sources with the Michael Andretti, with the situations, what's going on. We're going to have the Ask Clippy segment coming up even more. I've got a lot of questions that I want to fire at you guys over the next several weeks. Kyle, I know you had a very interesting weekend in Newcastle, and I know you guys both have some busy weekends coming up here as we change the calendar over to November here in the next week or two.
Yeah, I mean, I was over for Rotax. It was a very chill weekend in Newcastle. Spent a lot of weekends in Newcastle recently. Wasn't the biggest event, but it was fun. We're currently prepping for Supernats, so it was able to car chaser side. We were able to kind of do some things to kind of basically run through practice for Supernats. We were able to kind of take that event and kind of do fire drills like we would at Supernats, which is our biggest event of the year, while also simultaneously putting. That's not to say that we were working any less for Rotax. We put on a pretty badass show, and Supernats is coming up in a couple weeks. David will be there pit reporting. I'm going to bring this up every week on the show because I want all of you guys to tune into this event. It's the IndyCar off season. It's I think,
and you're
NASCAR,
using me to promote. Oh,
NASCAR, NASCAR will be over by then. All that will be left is F1. I don't think it clashes on that weekend. We have all of the drivers from the FIA World Championship going against all of the best shifter drivers in North America. It's it's the biggest event in the United States, and I would argue in the world for karting and I am very lucky to be one of the people helping put on the show on the broadcast side.
Are we all going to run the Save the Freedom 100 when that comes up in December? Are we all racing that? Maybe we'll do an unverified livery, and I'll get out there and wreck half the field and end up flipping over the grandstand and landing.
This is probably actually a pretty good place and a good time because I'm about to make the graphic and make the post, but it's probably a good time to announce that Peak Performance has signed on as a sponsor for the Save the Freedom 100.
Oh my God.
For December. We got a sponsor. So yeah, big things are happening. Hopefully I think the entry list is going to be huge. It's going to be crazy. Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to make the field, but you know what? I'm going to give it a full-blown effort. Hilarious history in the chat says most race wins Buddy Rice. No, but he does have the most what, Kyle, at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
What?
Buddy Rice.
He has the most
family
bathrooms. Most family bathrooms, yeah, named after
officially named after him anyway. There are a couple family bathrooms that we call other things, but
yes, that's inside baseball. That is media center, high school.
I know. I've never actually known that until I saw the picture today. That it actually that is actually the Buddy Rice family bathroom. Like this isn't some stupid corny joke. It actually says it. I didn't believe you guys. I thought because there's so many stupid jokes you guys make that one was actually real. That one actually is a thing. I couldn't believe it.
So if for those that don't know, when you're walking Gasoline Alley before you get into the garage area, that right side, there are some suites there. There's some bathrooms as well. And I think randomly over the last couple of weeks, and I guess I can ask Doug, or maybe we can ask somebody that's in facilities at Indianapolis Motor Speedway to give us an answer. But all of a sudden, the family restroom was named after Buddy Rice, just randomly. It's on the sign. And I thought it was first, like you said, Kyle, like a joke, or maybe somebody just put it up there as ha ha ha, or wrote it inside the bathroom. But no, there was a legit sign at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that says the Buddy Rice family bathroom. So he does lead the way. Not somebody that I would name a family bathroom after, but if you've got Champions Row there and you're looking for something,
there's got to be an inside joke. There's got to be some inside baseball on that.
Maybe there's going to be a behind the bricks on it.
Yeah.
You know what? There you go. The Buddy Rice family bathroom. I'll tell you what, boys.
I did see Clifford today. That did happen.
We saw Clifford. Was he okay?
Walking through the garages. He had the hood up still, but I'm guessing it's because the battery. They got to keep the hood up to disconnect and reconnect the battery because that thing drains. We all know. That's what we know about Clifford now. We know probably a little too much about Clifford's insides. A little TMI, poor Cliff. But
listen, he's getting up there in age. It
doesn't
doesn't work as well anymore.
But I saw him today. He was hanging out in the garage. It was pretty funny. It was literally just me. I was alone in the speedway. Walked past an open garage with Clifford in. I said, "Hey, Clifford, what's up? Good morning." I said, "Good morning, buddy," and I walked right by.
Just the absolute state of that test today. I mean, I think there was just way too much testosterone. I'll be honest.
Well,
the absolute
there certainly is that. I did want to mention this. somebody that was absent today who has moved on from the IndyCar beat at the Indianapolis Star was Nathan Brown. Want to wish Nathan the best. What a great time to go cover the Colts.
Yeah.
Nathan is an excellent rider. He will do well with the Colts. He will enjoy that beat for the Colts. I think we'll see him back in the month of May. So congratulations to Nathan Brown escaping the IndyCar circus to hop on when the Colts are incredibly good with a record of 6-1. So I know that, there are times in the media and, I'll be the first to admit that it is competitive at times. There are people that you gravitate towards and some people that you don't gravitate towards. But definitely want to say, Nathan did a great job at the Indianapolis Star, IndyCar wise. Appreciate what he did and look forward to seeing what he will do with the Indianapolis Colts and with the Indianapolis Star.
Yeah, Nathan, I think the biggest thing I would say about Nathan is I really appreciated how much of a ball buster he was in IndyCar. I mean, he put the feet to the fire and he kept him there, right? So, again, like you said, Tony, I mean, Nathan is kind of picking the right spot, the right time to go cover the Colts because, I mean, my God, it feels like 2006. I mean, I watched that game this weekend, and I sat there at the first half, and I'm like, I'm watching a team that can win the Super Bowl. And I haven't felt that way. I mean, honestly, even some of the Colts teams that went to the Super Bowl, I didn't feel this confidently about. So,
yeah,
what a hell of a time.
And to that point, I know you're in a custody battle with a friend over here in Charlotte. I mean, sports right now in Indianapolis just absolutely off the wall. Pacers getting ready to start. Colts looking good. IU football, Notre Dame football. What the Pacers did as well. I mean, what an awesome. We have the Final Four here this year coming up. So what an awesome time to
super competitive here in Indianapolis. We're super competitive here.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to get that point across. As far as that, one thing I'm going to call you out on, David. I'm going to put you on the spot here. I know you love this
again.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know you're. I know you're the hair on the back of your neck is standing up. You did mention earlier in the show the importance of some contracts and things coming up in December. Obviously, There are a lot of things when it comes to entries for the Indianapolis 500, but something that continues to come up and is going to continue to come up is what the future of the engine manufacturers looks like in the sport. And obviously the ideal situation is for Honda to stay. I think Doug Bowles would tell you that. And that's a question I think later on down the line is going to have to be asked to Doug. But some of the things that we've seen in testing and some of the things that we continue to move forward, how much is this to try to make everything as feasible to say, hey, look, Honda, we want you to stay. You won the Indianapolis 500 this year. And will we see that? When will we see, do you think, the announcement on whether or not they're coming back?
Well, I think Doug kind of gave us the answer in a roundabout way, Q1 of next year. Mm-hmm. I have it on pretty good authority that here pretty soon the contracts are going to need to be signed past 2026. So we'll see what happens. I think I would put it this way. I don't hear a lot of negativity. And here's the thing. We talk about Honda a lot because Honda has been the one who's been vocal. But Chevy hasn't re-signed either. Mm-hmm. And Chevy doesn't really participate in series that they don't compete against anybody. What's a spec Chevy series? Can you name one? I can't think of one, right? So it's crucially important, I think, for the sport that they both sign up. They're both back on board. And we all move forward as a sport. And, it's one of the things that I brought up to Doug Bowles, and I kind of hoped he would spike the football a little bit more, and he didn't, and I understand why he didn't. But I think if you look at the Formula One contract, the new TV deal with Apple TV, I think it's a huge mistake for Formula One. I'm going to be honest. And I think if you look at what's happening with NASCAR right now, with the predominantly cable and streaming TV package, and then you look at Formula One, which will be on a streaming app that sure a lot of people have, but you're pretty much capping your market share when you go behind a streaming service like Apple TV that isn't necessarily one of the big dogs in the sector, right? So then you're looking at IndyCar and you're going, hang on a second. Every race is on network television, free to air. You can just go get some bunny ears and watch any IndyCar race you want. you're sitting there and you're thinking, wait a second, IndyCar is in position where they can jump back past Formula One. I think if they can kind of bring some of the people who are disillusioned with having to go find a streaming service to watch Formula One races and bring those people into IndyCar. You've seen some ratings over 1 million viewers this year. If you can keep doing that, you can keep pushing that. I think you can jump past the Xfinity series and be the absolute number 2 TV ratings wise in the sport or in the country. And then if you look at what's happening with NASCAR right now, if they don't right the ship, you're going to be kind of mano a mano with some of those cable races with NASCAR Cup with what IndyCar can get on a network. So then you're looking at not only the current engine suppliers like Chevy and Honda, but if anybody else wants to come play, they might take a harder look at IndyCar if the TV ratings keep going up, if the accessibility of the series keeps going up. And I think, those current OEMs have to be looking at what's going on in IndyCar and saying, hey, look, if you look into the future a couple of years, like they're positioned pretty well. Now, is everything perfect in IndyCar? Hell no. But I'll tell you what, I'd like to be in IndyCar's position where the worst lawsuit that's happening right now is between a driver and a team and not the series and a couple of team owners, right? And if I'm looking at the IndyCar side from a media rights standpoint, if I was a sponsor, if I was an OEM, I know I would rather be on Fox for 17 times a year rather than Apple TV for 21 and spending a hell of a lot more money over there in Formula One. So I think that from the OEM perspective, again, I don't profess to know exactly what happens over there at either camp, but you don't hear a lot of negative things either, right? I feel like at this point, you would have heard something negative, and we just haven't heard anything negative. We haven't heard a lot of good things, to be fair, but we haven't heard a lot of things that are like concerning that make me go, we're in trouble. And I think Q1 of 2026, I wouldn't be surprised. I'll say this. I'm working off of what I heard from Doug Bowles today, right? But why not at St. Pete bring the representatives from the 2 OEMs? You bring out the new car and you go, here you go. Here's the new era of IndyCar. We're back, right?
Sky Warren asks, I believe Clifford is a 2002 S10, and I believe they are going to eventually make a diecast here over the next
very soon
couple of months. So we'll be back at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, probably another brief day tomorrow with Sato and Rossi being out there. Maybe it's 02 or 03. I can't quite remember. So we've got that coming up. We still got plenty of other things coming up as well, IndyCar wise. Hey, I did want to mention this, and especially the fact that I probably should have done it a while ago, but as we get into the off season, and we certainly want to be more interactive with all of you that join us here every Tuesday night, unverifiedcast@gmail.com. If you want to send, if you want to bitch about something that I said, if you want to send Boris some treats, if you want to send us a question or comment suggestion, always up for that. I may piss and moan about it, but unverifiedcast@gmail.com. David had a recap video today with Doug Bowles, as did I. Tomorrow you'll hear from drivers on David Land's YouTube channel. Kyle, what do you got coming up here for us over the next couple of weeks on your channels?
Prime will be sitting in my bunker preparing for Supernets. This is our biggest event of the year. So, yeah, it was kind of weird after Rotax where I was sitting there going, man, like I really don't, there's nothing else until Vegas now, boys. As my producer and my brother in battle, Riley, has said before, this time of year, pre-Supernets is when I enter demon mode. This is when I go absolutely crazy on all the content that we're going to conjure up and put on for Vegas. It's literally just a couple of guys just putting on a broadcast in Nevada. It's crazy what we do out of an RV, and I'm so excited.
David, I mentioned it, but what do you got coming up on the YouTube channel here over the next 24 hours? Obviously wrapping up this test and talking a little bit more about the future of IndyCar.
Yeah, we filmed another video today. We'll be kind of getting more into depth about the dampers. We kind of felt that it was most important to get the Doug Bowles quotes out today as quickly as we could. But I got another video coming from this test tomorrow, and then kind of get to sink our teeth into the offseason a little bit. Like I said, like Kyle said, I get a little bit of bunker time. I believe I received a text from my uncle today that David will be attending the Colts-Titans game, so we're going to be loud. We're going to be proud. Peyton taught us really well. We're going to be loud when the Colts are on defense. We're going to be real quiet when they're out there, when Danny Dimes, Indiana Jones is out there slinging that pigskin, Jonathan Taylor breaking 60-yard
Is your
runs.
uncle a hillbilly from Franklin? Is that why you just
No. He's a pharmacist. He's a pharmacist.
David was on this. I went over to David's on Sunday night to watch the Colts game, and he was on the same spiel. Like, Peyton taught us to be quiet. He taught us better than that.
He taught us to be quiet.
I love the
that word. Peyton Manning wants you to shut up so he can call out the plays and yell at Donald Brown.
That's right. That's
so
right.
Also, by the way, as a Cleveland Browns fan who's moved to Indianapolis, he was adopted the Indiana Pacers. I've not adopted the Colts. Hey, Thursday, Indiana Pacers season opener. We're back in basketball season, you know.
At home against Oklahoma City, I hope they wait to unveil that Eastern Conference Finals or Eastern Conference champion banner. They don't do it the night they play Oklahoma City because that would be
bad. Yeah,
but excited for basketball. Excited to spend Tuesday nights. We may take a little bit of a hiatus when we get towards the Christmas season, but again, can't thank everybody enough for joining us here every Tuesday night. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share, follow us on social medias. For David, for Kyle, for Boris, I'm Tony. We'll see you next week on Unverified.